In a declining empire, the Romans turned increasingly to the Oriental gods, Mithras and Zoroaster. Christianity was gaining ground, partly because it incorporated elements of these Oriental religions, but not the use of cannabis.
The Roman Empire really went to war on hemp. The Roman Empire provides a very good example of the importance, the strategic importance, one might say, of hemp in any society in history. The Romans had hemp arsenals either side of the Alps. They had one in Ravenna and one in Vienna. And the procurator of hemp was a very important position in the Roman hierarchy. That is not to say that hemp was only used by the Romans to make war with. It had its place in all the aspects of hemp and all the aspects of fibers that you can imagine that it would have, i.e. it figured in clothing, shelter, food, defense, aggression, and medicine.
Later on, Christians associated cannabis with the devil, and its use was supposed to be part of the satanic ritual. By 1484, Pope Innocent VIII declared that smoking cannabis was sacrilegious, and he promoted wine as the only Christian holy sacrament.
It seems that knowledge of the psychotropic properties of the plant had been lost, at least as far as official science was concerned. It became a hidden, secret knowledge. Only people who really had a good knowledge of plants and their healing powers continued to use the plant. And having a good knowledge of plants at that time was not generally a good idea, because such people were thought to be witches. They were called witches because they knew about things that ordinary people didn't know about and didn't understand.
It was only in the 9th century that hemp cultivation was encouraged again by Charlemagne. In the monasteries, monks wrote their manuscripts on hemp paper by the light of a hemp oil lamp. In 1945, Gutenberg printed the first Bible. It was printed on hemp paper.
Here we go. Viva la mota! What does that mean? Long live pot. I have a good background and a good education. I have 10 years of college, master's degree in biology, and 4 years in the School of Public Health at UCLA. So I started putting together a museum. Slowly people started giving me things they thought were hemp, and I looked around and found things that were historical. There was a can of hemp seed oil varnish here, and hemp Bible there that I've accumulated, 100-year-old flag, and so on. This is an ongoing educational process. I'm learning every day more and more things. People tell me things about hemp while I'm at the museum, so it's very instructive. My mother's a good example. When I learned the hemp stuff, I came to her and told her, and she says, no, it couldn't be the same plant. I know what hemp is. She's in her 80s now. I said, sorry. And gave her the book, and she's a believer now.
In the 16th century in France, François Rabelais, a doctor and writer, wrote surreptitiously about cannabis in his famous book, Gargantua and Pantagruel.
He appreciated cannabis so much that he called it Pantagruelion after his hero Pantagruel. Cannabis, for Rabelais, is Pantagruelion. And this plant has such wonderful properties, as he said, that if plants were to choose a king, in his words, a king of the woods, they would have chosen cannabis to be the queen of plants.
Rabelais' essay on Pantagruelion, stroke hemp, is corroborated by modern authorities. In particular, I could cite a noted French historian called Pierre Goubert. He was quite convinced that the marked increase in prosperity in the late 16th and 17th century in Western France was due, not exclusively, but primarily to the organization of the hemp and flax industries. We may remember that at the end of the 15th century, Spain was the mistress of the Indies. And it was, according to Goubert, the organization of the hemp and flax industries and their sale to Spain, their trade with Spain, that led to the rise in births, in marriages, into a general level of both population and prosperity at that time in France.
In 1492, Christopher Columbus discovered America and at the same time introduced hemp to the New World. He offered the natives gifts including hemp seeds and cloths. Hemp was used to make sails and rope. Thanks to this crop, France, England, Spain and Portugal could strengthen and increase their maritime power. In 1620, the Mayflower brought the Pilgrims to conquer America. In the hold, it also brought hemp seeds. 100 years later, the first drafts of the American Constitution were written on hemp paper. The same paper was used in 1776 for the Declaration of Independence.
Cannabis seeds were now also brought into America by the African slaves.
Messieurs, voici un jeune homme en bonne santé, bon robuste, excellent travailleur. 400 piastres. 500 piastres. 600 piastres.
The Africans were captured in their own country to be used as slaves in America. They arrived without clothes and were given rough hemp clothes to wear. That was a traditional prison uniform. Western countries rediscovered cannabis, or at least its psychotropic properties, which had been hidden from people for centuries, during the expansion of their empires, which also introduced them to other cultural influences. The English rediscovered cannabis in India, and the French did the same in North Africa. When Bonaparte launched his Egyptian campaign, the soldiers brought back home many souvenirs, including hashish. The modern history of hashish in France goes back to Napoleon's Egyptian campaign. Bonaparte was almost assassinated by an Egyptian who had taken hashish. That's how our relation with cannabis started, because straight away Napoleon banned cannabis in Egypt.